What is up, fight fans, and welcome to an all-new edition of the Scrap Report. I am, of course, Jason Burgos, and as always, I am joined by the Grand Master of Hate for the greater Los Angeles County area, and that is the one and only Anthony B. Walker, like Stephen A. Smith. We're going to go with Anthony B. Walker. Senor ABW, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay, man. I'm happy to actually be doing this with you again, man, because it's been a little while since we got a scrap report out. So it'd be fun to catch up. A lot of fight stuff has happened since we last did this, but I'm also feeling a little strange right now because I opened my computer and this headline popped up on like the regular MSN menu because I use Microsoft Edge. I don't like Google Chrome, but anyway, it popped up and it said Anthony Walker dead at 60. I was like, what the hell just happened? But it was a member of the Gap Band who died. Who was named Anthony Walker.
So there's another famous Anthony Walker. Wow, I didn't even know that. That's good.
A less famous, less talented Anthony Walker out there, but
clearly.
So yeah.
I mean that really sets the standard because like he was on MSN. You've got to pretty much be like on Yahoo or like USA Today when you die.
Well, I've guested on stuff for USA Today, right? You know, I've done a couple of MMA Junkie podcasts as a guest, you know, and I was quoted in the LA Times once. So yeah.
Really?
Yeah, but you know.
For what? Please indulge us on this LA Times quote. Not my standard for the LA Times is just dropped.
No, it wasn't that big of a deal. It was a story that I inadvertently got myself tangled into because of an issue with Cody Garbrandt, and I asked him a question at a press event, and you know that's all. So I was asked about it afterward. You know, our interaction. No big deal.
So now people are going to be searching Anthony B. Walker, Cody Garbrandt, LA Times.
Probably, yeah. And you know, Cody, I'm sure he forgot about it by now, so ain't no big deal. He wouldn't even know who I am right now. I walk in front of him, he don't know who I am.
Oh no, come on. I'm sure everybody remembers you when they learn to hate you. I mean, that's hard to forget.
I'm a very hateable person.
Moving on, we've got a ton of topics to talk about because we haven't done this in a while. A lot of different things to cover. Some UFC 299 talk, some UFC 300 talk. There's a lot of fights in the celebrity boxing realm that are getting made or happen. You know, a lot of shit going on. So first, I want to go to UFC 299. That's the thing that just happened when we're recording this. It's the freshest in our mind. Got 2 points of that. The first is, of course, if you were one of the people watching or if you were one of the people in the building, UFC 299 was headlined by Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Vera. Obviously, Sean O'Malley won the fight fairly dominantly. He was already becoming one of the biggest stars in the company. The metrics on the socials, and we all saw how big of a deal it was when he knocked out Aljamain, and was it on how it was on YouTube it performed them, how it performed them on social, stuff like that. But there was all this conversation about how this event was going to do because maybe the gate and the buys weren't big enough in the win over Sterling. But gate for this fight was the fourth biggest in UFC history. The only time there have been bigger gates in UFC history, for people that don't know the term gate, that means tickets sold at the arena, were for Conor McGregor fights. And that was like later in his career, the Poirier fights and all the Khabib Nurmagomedov fights, stuff like that. All signers probably did well on pay-per-view, but you know, it's always different behind the paywall and stuff like that. But that said, I mean, he's the kind of fighter that really fits this generation and even connects with the older fans. Is Sean O'Malley the new face of the UFC after this win over Marlon Vera? And if it's not him, who is the face of the company?
I'm going to say that Sean O'Malley might be on his way to that, but he's not yet. I think a lot of the success around UFC 299, we've got to spread a little bit of it, right? I mean, that's the case with a lot of the big pay-per-view events because they tend to stack those with a fair amount of star value. But let's not forget that according to some of our colleagues that were at the event that were covering UFC 299, like 40% of the media was there from Ecuador. 40% of the media was Spanish speaking to see Chito Vera in his challenge for the title. So I think we need to show some love to him because bringing in an entirely new audience to the experience definitely will boost a lot of those numbers. Dustin Poirier is also one of the tried and true vets in the company, and he had a prominent place in the co-main event and one of the standout moments in the entire event. So he deserves some of that love. I think Sean O'Malley is probably one win away from being that star. And I mean, maybe this will be a different conversation if he got a spectacular finish. I mean, he did everything but finish Cheeto Vera. If he got that finish and got that highlight reel, and they got that other clip that they could post to social and watch it go viral and stuff,
Yeah.
then maybe we're having that conversation. As far as who actually is the face of the UFC now, I'm by the way the broadcast ran, I'd say it was Donald Trump. Donald Trump got more love on the broadcast than all the fighters.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my stance on that one.
You know what? I'm gonna go in the direction that he is the face, mainly because, and I think you kind of went on it. There really is no other face. I think if this fight happened at say like UFC 295 or 294, and he had time to get to UFC 300, he'd probably be the main event of UFC 300 because there's just a lack of faces. Connor, we've talked about it. He's probably not going to fight again. He's not nobody you can rely on. The UFC 300 main event, love the fight, Jamal Hill versus Alex Pereira, but that's not Brock Lesnar versus Frank Mir. That's not the dream fight of John Jones against Dave Cormier. That was going to be a 100 200. He's a young fighter. It's only his second defense. I mean, if he would have got the finish, man, because in the end, and I was talking about it with my friend watching the fight, no one's finished Marlon Vera. It's crazy. Marlon Vera has fought so many people so many times, and no one finishes him. And he came as close as you can get by just pummeling him for 5 rounds. But yeah, I just think he fits the time we're in. The tattoo face. I hate face tattoos. It's ridiculous, but it works for him. The colored hair. We're going for the TikTok crowds. We're going for the millennials and the generations after that. And he fits it. And what works for him is, he's a trash talker and he's weird, but he's not a trash talker that turns you off. But some people don't like it, but I mean of the Colby Covington level and even Chael Sonnen at his best. He's a smart businessman who will trash talk to a level and sell, but he's not an idiot, So I really think he is the face just because there's a lack of it. And I think we'll see that he needed to get this win. He needed to get it clearly. He didn't get the finish, but he got it dominantly, avenged that loss that everybody thought maybe was a fluke. And that's why I'm going to go with it. Now, the following up on that question, it seems like Merab Dvalishvili's got to be next. I mean, personally, I would love to see him fight Corey Sandhagen. I think that fight would be hot fire. That could have been a perfect 300 main event. But Merab deserves a shot. I'm not one of those people that is mean. Screw them up. Merab, the dude, I think he's won 8 or 9 in a row. Not even like 8 or 9 close fights, barely split. Dominant. The guy has hardly lost a round like his last 4 or 5 fights. The big question is then, is this the guy that finally gives Sean O'Malley a problem? Is he the wrestling test we've all won? Is he the stylistic matchup that it's just going to be too much of a puzzle to fill? To answer for O'Malley and whenever they fight, maybe in the summer.
Well, I definitely agree that Merab is the guy that should be next up. As much as I think the Corey Sandhagen fight would be a better fight, I think that would be the more entertaining fight. And from, a couple guys who really enjoy like watching the technique of it all and trying to break that down, Corey Sandhagen presents a lot of puzzles that I think would be interesting to see Sean try to solve. But Dvalishvili, I mean, what he did to Henry Cejudo, what he did to Piotr Jan, I mean, this is the clear number 1 contender. And there should be, at some point, we have to start acknowledging people who are on these ridiculous win streaks and who are defeating all this top tier talent to get them title shots and not have, Bilal Muhammad situations continue to repeat themselves like as Leon Edwards experienced before. And so we don't need to have that happen. So let these guys who actually earn their title shots get them. I do think Merab can give Sean O'Malley a lot of problems because his wrestling attack and because his endless cardio, but I'm going to jump out here right now and say it. Maybe when that fight is actually made and we break it down, I'll have a change of heart. But where I'm sitting right now, I don't think Sean O'Malley's going to have too much trouble in this one.
I agree.
I think this is a very winnable fight for him.
Yeah.
I like Dvalishvili as dominant as he can be at times. It's based on this sort of junk volume. I would say it's almost like Colby Covington's game, where you throw out a lot of volume that's not necessarily effective, but it's just overwhelming. And then someone's so confused and overwhelmed that then they get kind of caught in this web and it's hard to get out of it. Merab fights like that, but I don't think O'Malley is going to necessarily, unless he just purely gasses out. Unless he gasses out, I think O'Malley just sits back and picks him apart, man. I think he gives him so much work as he's trying to come in to throw those junk takedown attempts that it's just not going to be worth it on just the damage that he's going to receive. So
Yeah,
yeah, I think O'Malley wins that one.
and Marab is one of the few fighters I think on the roster right now that you can legitimately say he's like a force of nature, because he's not the best technical wrestler. He's not a high level striker. He's not a jiu-jitsu guy who's getting submissions, but his relentlessness really is a power unto itself, and we rarely see it. I've only seen it really with like the likes of a Habib or Ferguson at his peak, or Diego Sanchez. Just that the relentlessness, that it's a perfect mix of cardio and just good chin, and and just good wrestling and all this kind of things. But you nailed it. A lot of people are like, oh, that's going to be a trouble for him. He's got to wrestle this guy to death and all this stuff. But look at Sean O'Malley. Like, Sean O'Malley needs to start getting conversation as one of the best strikers. Like, because he's in the same realm as Adesanya, as Anderson Silva. Absolute sniper. If you make mistakes, like I was watching a video on Instagram recently of his coach talking about, they practiced what they did on Aljamain Sterling in camp. They read how he attacks and how he sets up takedowns, and that step back right hook counter was something they worked on. So they've got a perfect kind of working relationship. They're good at scouting. They find openings. Marlon Vera, how he stayed up from that knee to the face, it is beyond me. Something that O'Malley said recently, it felt disgusting how he was able to land that, and actually, like, he was able to stay there. He's just sniper. And Marab, as good as he is, as relentless he is, he makes mistakes. He leaves openings. Could he just tire him out? For sure. But I just see that perfectly as a fight where this guy just snipes him out early when he's going for a takedown, because we all know the takedown's coming, and he gets him out of there quickly.
Yeah, and then you also got the size difference as well. I mean, we're talking like Vera at least has a lot of the length that he can, certain things that O'Malley couldn't get away with as freely. And he'll see, like with Merab, he'll see that takedown coming a mile away. A guy that small, he's going to see him shooting out, because he's got to shoot out from further away, right? Or he's got to get more damage trying to close the distance. It's just not going to be an easy fight for him. So that I'm going O'Malley winning that fight. And like I said, hey, when we start breaking this down, when that fight is booked, maybe we'll start changing our minds. Maybe we'll start seeing other little nuances that we're not thinking of right now. But yeah, I think O'Malley gets that.
And and another big moment from UFC 299 was, of course, and it wasn't the fight I was most interested. I felt there was more interesting fights in the card, but it ended up being one of the best, and that was Dustin Poirier versus Benoit Saint Denis. And we've been covering this sport for a long time, and it's a lot of this. Rarely is there moments where you really become a fan again, but Dustin Poirier, I don't know how you don't love this guy. I mean, he's just one of the greatest examples and representatives and ambassadors of the sport the sport still has, because so much trash talk, self-promotion now. He's one of the best examples. Just a legendary career. His comeback in that fight, which seemed like it was going to go the wrong way from that first round, legitimately had me get up out of my seat screaming and cheering when he won the fight. It was just that kind of awesome kind of moment to watch. But that said, I mean, for all the talk of his great fights he's been in, the finishes, this guy has an unbelievable record. I wanted to pose a question. Is Dustin Poirier among the top 3 greatest lightweights of all time? We're going to quickly run down his resume. He has wins over Michael Chandler, McGregor twice, Max Holloway at 155, Eddie Alvarez, Gaethje, Pettis, Jim Miller, Bobby Green. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them are former champions or interim champions. Now, his losses in his career are to Korean Zombie, Cub Swanson, and McGregor. Those are all featherweight, so they really don't count for this. And his only losses at lightweight is a weird one to Michael Johnson. I don't know how he lost to Michael Johnson. He lost to Habib, Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje in a rematch. And a rematch, their first fight was one of the greatest lightweight fights ever seen. Anthony, is he top 3? Is he top 5? Like, the only people I was thinking that maybe be put in front of him is BJ Penn, Habib, Charles Oliveira, maybe Islam, and maybe Frankie Edgar. Where do you place him? Is he top 3? Is he top 5? Is he not top 5 at all?
Man, I so wished I did a better look at the outline so I'd have a better answer prepared for you, because this is really, it's one of those things I never really thought about until you just said, right?
Right.
He certainly belongs in that conversation. I don't know if I'm comfortable right now just saying, okay, top 3 all time. Now, top 3 in the UFC, maybe, I guess, but overall, I don't know, man. I gotta put BJ Penn above him, right? Just because of how ridiculous his title
He's a
reign
pound for
was.
pound guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, but if we're just talking about lightweight, does the pound for pound thing even come into play? See,
Well, I mean, like, he was so good at that division, so dominant. He was considered
yeah,
one of the best in the world. Not even just one of the best at lightweight.
yeah, that's true. He's certainly better than McGregor at lightweight.
Yeah, beat him
McGregor's
twice,
lightweight
yeah.
career is just the Eddie Alvarez fight, and that's it.
Yeah.
He does have a win over Alvarez, but I think Alvarez probably should be ranked above him simply because he's had a title. He's had an undisputed title. He had titles in other organizations.
Right.
Yeah, Eddie Alvarez is. Off the top of my head, I probably would put him above Dustin overall. I think Ben Henderson needs to be brought up in this conversation. Ben Henderson had a fantastic lightweight title.
Also, I would say about Ben is Ben got a lot of lucky scorecards. There was some fights that could have went out different ways, and they went for him, especially those Frankie fights. I can't put a guy that barely won some fights over at Dustin Poirier.
He had close fights. Wins. He had close fights against some of the best in the world. I mean, you can't really fault someone for that.
Yeah, but Dustin beat some of the best in the world. He didn't just close fight; he beat him.
But Dustin, at no point in time was Dustin Poirier the best lightweight in the world. He's never been the best lightweight. He's been one of the best. No. But I think if we're talking about the all-time best, you've got to be top 3 all-time best in one of the most talent-rich divisions in the history of mixed martial arts. You have to at one point been the best lightweight in the world.
It's a tough one because then you're putting Chuck Liddell in the light heavyweight conversation, and without a doubt, he's a legend. But is he one of the best lightweights because he was good at a time? You know,
he was, if not he was certainly the best light heavyweight in the UFC for a while. He certainly was, and the only reason why there's a debate on whether he was the best overall period is because Pride was running and Vanderlei Silva was doing what he was doing. That's the and then you put them head to head and Chuck won. Granted they were a little past their primes, but I think, man, that's. God damn it, I wish I actually looked at that outline a little more thoroughly so I'd have more preparation in what I'm going to say.
Fail to prepare, prepare to fail. Come on.
Hey, the outline got to me, 5 minutes before you hit record, so I wouldn't have much time anyway. You know what I mean? Yeah, Dustin, if I'm generous, I say top 5. Generously top 5, certainly top 10. But at no point was he the best lightweight in the world, so I can't put him top 3 all time in the division.
Yeah, I have a tough time putting him top 3. I got to put him top 5, though. I love Frankie Edgar, but I would put him above Frankie Edgar. As good as Frankie Edgar was, I think Frankie Edgar, without that, you can't take anything away from the fact that he ended the BJ Penn reign, but the division outside of BJ wasn't super strong and stuff like that. It was Gray Maynard, but we all look back and now at Gray Maynard in a very different way. I think what Dustin is able to do in an era where lightweight very much is as Shark Tank as it's ever been. And he's gotten wins over some of the elites, like some of the biggest stars, like as good as BJ Penn, Frankie Edgar beating BJ Penn in one of those first events in Saudi, like Dustin blasting through Conor McGregor, the biggest star in the sport, twice is just a whole nother level. And what he was able to do, beat Justin Gaethje, one of the greatest fights. His fight with Dan Hooker, didn't even mention that. Dan Hooker was another absolute classic that he won. He's in classic fights, classic wins. The only people that beat him other than Michael Johnson are like the elites of the elites. So yeah, I got to go top 5. But moving on, we're going to talk more legends, but please, of course, wherever you're listening to this, wherever you watch this, like, share, subscribe to the channel. Please subscribe to the Ringside Intel channel, wherever you listen for the Ringside Intel content. Comment, let us know what do you think about these debates. But moving on, we're going to talk about another legend, and that is the news. I was surprised. I wasn't surprised, but I was surprised that Mike Tyson coming back again for out of a pseudo retirement this time to fight Jake Paul. Like, no, he's not going to fight a legend of his own age bracket. He's going to fight Jake Paul to show you how much people think there's money in this. It's going to be on Netflix, people. This damn thing is going to be on Netflix live. So Netflix says, yes, Mike Tyson, Jake Paul, please give us all the money. It's going to be huge. And then it's going to be inside AT&T Stadium, the home of the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry Jones, Dallas Cowboys owner, is a part of this. He's going to let them sit and fight in his 80,000 seat stadium. He sees money in this. First question, before we, let me go. I'm going to do this first, and then we'll get to prediction. But will this Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson? Mike Tyson, 58 years old. You did a fantastic preview and a breakdown of the news on the Ringside Intel YouTube channel. I recommend everybody go look at it. Also, with watching this, is this going to be one of the biggest fights of 2024 in boxing?
Yeah, I mean it already is, right? It's already one of the biggest fights because of a lot of things you mentioned. I mean, besides the names associated with this, right? Jake Paul being this huge star in the world of social media as an influencer or whatever he does, besides his boxing matches. Like he's a big name. The kids love him, all that cool stuff, right? Mike Tyson is a name that I think anyone who was born within, before like 1990 has this high reverence for, because it's Mike Tyson. Like,
yeah.
Good Lord, it's Mike Tyson. So there is a lot of interest just on those names. And then the biggest thing, this is on Netflix. So how many people have Netflix? Like pretty much everybody has Netflix. And
across the world too, not just a US thing, across the world.
That's a worldwide thing. So everyone's got Netflix. And this is it's in all these homes, man. It's just going to be there. You're going to turn on Netflix to watch Stranger Things, which, by the way, we need that final season like yesterday. And then this is going to pop up, right? There are going to be so many people that are just going to watch this because it's available. The people who don't subscribe to ESPN Plus and who aren't willing to shell out $70 for a UFC pay-per-view, and the people who aren't willing to shell out $50 for whatever pay-per-view in every boxing match, they're not, those people will follow the fights wherever they go. But the other people, the ones who don't do that, they have Netflix and they're going to be able to see this. So it's already the biggest fight. Now, as far as the success of the event itself, I think they're setting themselves up for a massive failure at Cowboy Stadium. Yeah. That is a huge, huge, huge venue. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. The last time I remember a combat sporting event being there was it Canelo? Did Canelo box someone there? I know Pacquiao has had a couple fights there, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, they're going to have to do some serious configuration with the layout of that, to the point where it sounds pretty stupid to have it there, right? If you put it at an NBA size arena, you're probably going to fill that up. But I mean, 80,000 people? No.
And I definitely don't think they're going to get anywhere near 8,000. But let's say they get 40,000. 40,000 for a Jake Paul fight is pretty nuts, considering who he is, where his standing and relevancy in the sport is. I mean, it'll be interesting because with the ring, it's not a field and everything like that, so it gets much smaller. But it's an event, and it can easily be sold as, because we don't know, it can be sold, and I think that's why Roy Jones versus Mike Tyson did so well, is as this is Mike Tyson's last fight. This is it. This is your last chance. This is the last chance, and the last chance to watch Mike Tyson's last fight. Because what's crazy is you can argue that he's maybe more popular now than he was at the height of his career, because he was one of the most famous athletes at the height of his career. But in American culture, Mike Tyson, despite some of the not so good things he's done in his life, he's become like a part of Americana. Like, he's in cartoons, he's in podcasts, he's in movies. Like, he's connected with multiple generations now, that it adds a different type of fanfare for him, and that element of what you could sell, along with Jake Paul and all his ability to promote and his own fan base. Even if they get 40,000, I think it's a success, and it's an interesting thing. But yeah, I agree. It's going to be one of the biggest fights of boxing in this year, and that's not good. That's pretty bad for boxing.
but it exists outside of the actual world of boxing. Like that's what I think the people who are the diehards, the people who are purist about this whole thing need to recognize. This is not existing in your realm, right? This isn't for you. This isn't for us. Even like we're not like we'll watch it.
Mm.
Obviously, we're gonna report on it and write and podcast on it and whatnot. It's content for us, but for the diehard boxing fans, for like my dad, who was the biggest Mike Tyson fan. I remember him leaving the house. Go over his house on the weekends, and he's like, "I'm gonna go to my buddy's house real quick to watch this fight," and it's like he's gone for 10 minutes and he turns right back around. Yeah, Tyson knocked him out in 12 seconds. Like, for my dad is not going to watch this because to him it's stupid because he knows better. He knows what good boxing is. Um, there are a lot of stupid people that don't know that this is stupid, so they'll tune in. And I think also too we're talking about this Saudi Arabian explosion of combat sports where they're throwing money to make things appear bigger. Like they're throwing money at like a who's who in boxing and MMA to show up ringside for Ngannou and Fury and stuff. I don't think the resources are going to go to that level of creating a show for this. So it's just going to exist for these people and not try to draw in, the people who rightfully won't care,
And another reason I'll just throw out there before we get to quick predictions. Another reason why I think it's going to be, it's going to be a big success is just because of accessibility. In an era where we're still dealing with inflation a little bit, and people are, have so many subscriptions, and middle class is disappearing. Like this isn't behind some paywall and then a $50 or $80 fee. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
as accessible a fight to see a legend as you're gonna get. And globally, like was just looking up, Netflix has 260 million subscribers. So if you get half of those people who only are gonna they have to pay nothing extra, and they're just using their own subscription that they already have to watch this. I mean, the accessibility of it. That's why, for example, WWE, now that it's in a peak period, is doing so well because you can watch WrestleMania and SummerSlam for a Peacock subscription. That is like a great selling tool. So Netflix being a part of this and not being behind any kind of paywall is a fascinating element of it. That said, how do you think this fight's going? I did a piece over at Ringside Intel today about a comparison video from Instagram about both of them hitting mitts, and this isn't Francis Ngannou when you watch Mike Tyson hit mitts. This is still a scary dude, which makes me really feel. I always felt like Brock Lesnar, Bo Jackson, guys like that with the most freak athletes. Ken Griffey Jr., most freak athletes at generation. The fact that he's still so quick at almost 60 makes me put Mike Tyson in that category now. How do you see this fight going? Who's going to win this fight? Early prediction.
I mean, we're talking about a guy who will be 58 when this happens. He looks fantastic on the mitts, right? He looks great. But he's still a man who's near 60 years old.
Yeah.
Against a guy who is, 26, 27, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's going to be, 31 or 32 years older than him when this fight takes place. This is going to be really sad and ugly. Mike Tyson is certainly still one of the scariest people ever. Like I've talked to the man face to face. I've shook his hand and interviewed him, like standing 2 feet in front of me. And as nice as he was, and as polite and as easy as the conversation was, plus he was high as a kite. Like he was high out of his mind. He was blowing weed smoke in my face the whole time. But that's another story. Um, he's still like he's still gonna be like 60 years old, bro. This is not right. This is not supposed to happen. I think we're gonna see like Jake Paul have to endure. If he can endure like the first round, Mike Tyson's probably gonna come out that first round like a bat out of hell because that's all he's gonna have in him. That is it. That might be enough, and he might chin Jake Paul and create the greatest old man moment of all time. But if Jake Paul can evade for a minute and 12 seconds or whatever until old man gasses out, it is going to be ugly. Ugly, ugly, ugly. It's going to be, I mean, it might get the sport of boxing banned that ugly.
I'm gonna go in the other direction. Now things could have certainly changed in the last 4 years, but surprisingly, Mike Tyson's cardio held up far better than I thought. Now, obviously, he's fighting Roy Jones Jr., but Jones Jr. as one of the greatest of all time, and you did a top 10 boxer all time over on Ringside recently. He was on the list, and he has more tricks than he's forgotten more tricks than Jake Paul has. And I really do think you nailed it. Mike Tyson's going to come out like a bat out of hell, and I just think his technique and his tricks are just at another level that Jake Paul, even with all his preparation, has never seen. And I could easily see him knock him out. But let's save that for future, a more in depth, even more predictions as we get closer to July in the fight.
I feel so ghoulish talking about this.
So let's move on to some more boxing, kind of that celebrity element of it in a way. Not so much, but just the crossover and the change in sport. But Francis Ngannou, unfortunately, he lost his fight to Anthony Joshua dominantly. Joshua knocked him down 3 times, knocked him out. Just can't say I was surprised, but still like shocking to see it happen and that kind of stuff. But now that he's been dismantled, maybe some of the luster's off a little bit, and some of the afterglow after that really close fight, almost beat Tyson Fury. That's one of the biggest upsets in fight sports history. Does this guarantee his PFL debut is his next fight? He's already scheduled to fight Renan Ferreira for the PFL the champion from last season, who recently just also dominated Ryan Bader in the PFL versus Bellator pay-per-view. Does this pretty much guarantee he's PFL bound? This fight that's been set for like not this fight, but he's supposed to make his debut for like almost 2 years now. Or does the Wilder fight that almost happened, if not for Wilder losing, does Wilder and Ngannou happen first?
I'm gonna go Wilder and Ngannou happens first. It told me a lot when the PFL heavyweight fight concluded and Ngannou was already gone. And this was the perfect moment to have the stare down, to hype this up. I mean, they already had a commercial made, like it was ready to go. Like Ferreira gets the win, and then a commercial's there like of Renan Ferreira versus Francis Ngannou coming soon to PFL Smart Cage, and Francis was already in the limo, cruising on a block somewhere, listening to Larry June or something in the limo. That is really. That showed me a lot of where his priorities lie. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all, because you think about this. Francis Ngannou, on a whim, started mixed martial arts. Like, he set out to go into boxing, but on a whim, he just happens to walk into this mixed martial arts gym, and the coaches there say, hey, why don't you try this sport? And he just stumbles his way into a UFC heavyweight championship that he gets to defend one time. So he lives up to this pinnacle of the sport, and then he actually then gets to live out his dream as far as boxing in these huge events with these huge stakes at the line and even bigger money. And there's still another one out there for him that's probably going to pay better than PFL and still within his realm of boxing. So this is this is also Deontay Wilder is far, far inferior of a technical boxer than Tyson Fury or Anthony Joshua. So this is the fight that I've been saying. If Ngannou wanted to try high level boxing, this was the guy, Deontay Wilder, because this is the best chance to win. This is a guy whose skill level he can match, right? So that fight is still there. You can still get that big bag, and PFL is always going to be there, right? PFL to Francis Ngannou is like that girl that you're kind of into, but you're not really. And there's always a girl that's a little better looking, that you vibe with a little more. But that other one will be there in case she flakes out, so you call her up. That's what PFL is to Francis Ngannou, unfortunately, and that's what he's going to treat this like, and take advantage of that. Do that. Because PFL is going to have another commercial ready to go. They will always be welcoming him. And he still has the seat on the board of PFL Africa, whatever that amounts to. Like, he still has an executive position with the company. Yeah, take that boxing match, man. That's the fight for him. I don't think Renan Ferreira is a bigger name than Deontay Wilder, nor is the check going to be bigger.
I agree with you on all levels. The only reason I think he could be PFL, and we've talked about this, and you can find the videos on Sportsnot YouTube channel. We talked about this, the Saudi PIF effect. If they're gonna they can throw more money at him in whatever side payments or whatever in his contract to have the PFL event, and he's the main event. They are invested in the PFL and the PFL success. I can see it happen just also because I think the luster is off of Ngannou versus Wilder. A year ago, that's a fun fight. They're both, got a lot of momentum and all this kind of thing. They're very similar. I think it could go either way, but they're both coming off of losses, like an ugly loss for Francis, an upset loss for Wilder. Like, I think the interest is lower. So if it's all about who's paying, I don't know if we're looking at the history, it's the Saudis that are paying for Ngannou and these big money to have these fights. If they're not as interested in Wilder and Ngannou, and they'd rather build up PFL and make him a face of PFL, I can see it happen. I can see the PFL fight happen, and then he goes to Wilder. But I think you nailed it in every way. It's the bigger fight. It's all about who's willing to pay, and if they're like it's different. Of those two stars, even Anthony Joshua and Fury are probably the more marketable, more famous, more liked. Nothing against Wilder. Wilder's a fantastic fighter and one of the greatest knockout artists in history. It's just in the pecking order of fame, it just always seemed like he was third. And now coming off a loss, I think that hurts his leverage a lot.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it when you're talking about the Saudi Arabian money that's backing this whole thing. I mean, they're double dipping right here, right? They're the same people that are invested in the PFL are invested in all these boxing matches. So it's just a matter of which one do they care about more.
Yeah.
Do they just want to see Francis, back kicking and double legging people, or do they want to see him boxing again? And that's really it. What they decide is going to be whichever direction he goes.
Yeah. Of course, wherever you're listening or we watch this, please like, share, hit the subscribe button on Ringside Intel. Comment, let us know what you think about what was going to be next for Francis Ngannou. We're going to end it here, and we're going to do some early UFC 300 talk. We'll do predictions at a later date as we get close to the event in April, but we'll do some early preview. Now, going through the card, of course, as you would expect, it's UFC 300. It's an absolutely stacked card. So we got Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill in the main event for the light heavyweight title. We got Zhang Wei Li versus Yan Xiaonan for the women's strawweight title. Gaethje versus Holloway for BMF. You got Yuri Prochazka versus Alexander Rakic. Aljamain Sterling is making his featherweight debut against Calvin Kattar. Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan, a fantastic fight at lightweight. You also got Bo Nichols' debut. Somehow it's on the main event. Oh my lord, UFC pushing this guy to the moon. Please stop. You got Davison for Figueiredo versus Cody Garbrandt, which is kind of like, it's like a non-dream fight. It's like a nap fight, maybe,
because it's a fever dream fight.
Yeah, because Cody's not what he once was. Figueiredo wouldn't know when he's going to be next. But still, it's two former champions fighting on the prelims, which is nuts. Bobby Green versus Jim Miller should be a whole lot of fun. Holly Holm versus Kayla Harris. Kayla Harrison's UFC debut. You got Sadiq Youssef versus Diego Lopes. That's a cool fight. And my girl, Jessica Andrade, my girl, versus Marina Rodriguez. I'm like, I saw a video that Chris Curtis posted of Jessica Andrade in New York working out, wearing the Yankees hat, wearing New York clothes. This is why I love this woman. But so we're going to look at this in a way, and that we're going to go through a few questions about the card. So first one, what do you feel is the sleeper fight on this card? Which is the one that's not going to get a lot of attention? That's going to be the one that's going to be hot fire.
I'm gonna go with the one that I think is the most recently made fight on the card, Jalen Turner and Renato Moicano. That's a fight that on any other card we would be like I know when the announcement was made, people were like excited. I think they made the announcement during 299, so there was excitement surrounding it. But on any other card, I mean that's an easy fight night main event. Easy fight night main event, and not just like a fight night main event at the Apex Center. That's one that they can take on the road, right? That's one that can go to Oklahoma City or Utah or Jacksonville, wherever they decide to set up shop for a particular one-off fight night card. That could headline easily. But it's so much other stuff going on this card. But I think it has some of the highest action potential. It's extraordinarily relevant to an action-packed division. And it's on the prelims, right? It's one that can get buried in the shuffle. And then the mix with all these former champions and Kayla Harrison making her UFC debut. And you've got two former champions fighting each other in the curtain jerker. there's a whole lot going on, and that just kind of fits in there, and it's easy to forget it. I guarantee you, when UFC 300 starts off and everyone is tweeting and going to social media about their takes of what's going on, when that fight is about to start, everyone's like, "Oh, that's right, this is on this card too."
For me, I'm gonna go with Yuri Prohaska, Alexander Rakic. I mean, those. I think a lot of people forgot about Rakic because, and I hope I'm saying his name right. Because like the injury, he lost,
Mhm.
he got an injury that fight against Blachowicz. He hasn't been around for a while, so like that. And just Yuri Prohaska is just entertaining as f every time he's out there. I think it's just a fun stylistic matchup. There's a lot on the line. You know, maybe push themselves into title contention for either guy. I just think stylistic, it's a fun, striking fight that's going to be real good. That's the one I'm looking forward to. But then, beyond just what's going to be a sleeper, what fight do you feel is kind of like the most important? It's really the fight that everyone needs to. If you're a casual or even a diehard fan, it's the fight that everyone kind of needs to be paying attention to. Maybe not the most stylistically interesting, but it's maybe relevant history or the names are important or like the most important matchup on this card.
Oh man, I that's a tough question. Please talk me out of this if you think I'm out of line here. I'm gonna go Calvin Kattar and Aljo.
Huh. Okay.
Simply because Aljamain Sterling is one of the most chronically disrespected champions in UFC history. And he's talked about a move to featherweight for a long time. I think his entrance in the featherweight division can really shake things up.
Hmm.
If he looks good against Calvin Kattar, that's going to be very, very interesting for the division. So I'm leaning toward that being the most important one. I mean, it's hard to the word important when you've got all these title fights going on, and
Yeah.
and title challenger was the number one contender fight between Oliveira and Sarukian being there. And then I think even if you Holly Holm and Kayla Harrison, kind of feels like the stakes of the UFC women's bantamweight division is on the line there, right? That division
Yeah. Maybe.
feels like
Yeah.
it's in the gutter right now
Yeah.
post Nunez.
Mm-hmm.
And if Kayla Harrison gets the win, which is by no means guaranteed, right?
Mm-hmm.
No guarantee that she even makes the weight first and foremost. But if she gets the win there, she looks good. We have a potential Kayla Harrison title fight. Say she wins that, then maybe this is the injection of energy that the women's bantamweight division needs. So those would be my two, I guess, reluctantly. Please correct me if I'm wrong or give me
No, those are all
your say on
fair,
this.
and I like both of them. I guess for me, it's probably going to be easy way out, but I'm going to go with Pereira versus Jamal Hill just because if Pereira beats Jamal Hill and he makes it look easy, which I really do think he can. Like Jamal Hill with this, I'm not gonna take him down, and like, boy, I mean, I respect
Oh,
the heck out of Jamal
that
Hill's
ain't you right.
striking. Yeah, I respect Jamal Hill, his striking, his skills. He's really good, but like his resume is also not the greatest resume in the world, and there can some way to ding it. And you're talking about who Alex Pereira has been as strikers. It's a whole nother level. And if Alex Pereira beats him, I just don't see really. I'm not really sure who else outside of it's Magomed Ankalaev, and that's it. I like
Mm-hmm.
right now. This is a kind of a weak point in light heavyweight, and this is kind of the last walls before like Alex Pereira could maybe go on to dominate this division for the next 2 or 3 years, and honestly put himself into all time consideration because he came on the scene and onto middleweight, beat the last guy who was champion, beat the one of the greatest of all time, Israel Adesanya, finished him. Then you go up to become the fastest guy to ever win titles in two divisions ever in UFC history. And if he can want to get his final kind of dominant run at the division, maybe reel off 3 or 4 title defenses, which based on how the division is looking right now, it's very possible. Man, you're starting to lay the foot the bricks of the building that is Alex Pereira is one of the greatest top 10 fighters of all time, which is what is a shocking thing. So for me, that's one historically that it's really interesting, and it's really a big fight for me. Pereira's legacy in the sport, which 2 years ago I was like, oh god, this guy's not going to go far. He's just getting into. He's got 2 MMA fights. He's going to get crushed. And he's dominated and impressively. But going away from the opposite flip side, which fight on this card do you think? Oh man, people don't realize it, but that fight is gonna suck. Like it's gonna be not good. It's gonna be boring. Don't expect. Like, be prepared for disappointment.
Funny thing is, let me just turn this right back around. Holly Holm and
Sterling?
Kayla Harrison.
Oh, okay.
It may not be a very entertaining fight.
Okay.
It may not, and Cater Sterling may not be an entertaining fight either.
That's where I'm going. I just
those two
like
hold
Sterling
a lot of importance for the futures of their divisions,
Yeah.
but they may not be the most entertaining. They may not be the crowd pleasers.
And I mean, the only saving grace is that both Sterling and Kayla have, unlike I say, a Merab Dvalishvili, they've shown a history of getting submission wins. They get
Right.
you on down, and they can finish it with submissions and stuff like that. So there's that chance that can definitely happen. But yeah, but for me, even more so, Sterling and Aljamain, I can very much see Sterling playing it safe. Maybe the difference in weight classes. The guy's a little stronger. It's a little bit harder to keep guys down, dominate. Calvin Kattar's going to put up a solid fight, but I can see Aljo definitively beating him, but with a wrestling attack that's not the most exciting thing, and it's not pleasing to the eye. So yeah, I'm going to go with those two. I think those two, they have the real chance to be disappointing. That said, over what? Rather.
Let me just throw another one that I think will be disappointing, but for a totally different reason. The BMF fight, Justin Gaethje, Max Holloway.
Yeah.
I don't think this is going to be the action-packed brawl that everyone wants it to be, that everyone's anticipating, right? I think this is a horrible, horrible mismatch, and I think we're about to see Max Holloway take a world of damage that is going to feel really gross to watch. That I think we're going to leave that fight feeling real sad. So that's going to be a disappointing one.
So that's not going to be your pick for fight of the night.
Absolutely not. Absolutely.
So what will be your pick?
Man, fight of the night. I think it's probably going to be Oliveira and Sarukian.
Yeah, that is a
or
low
Turner
key.
Morcano.
That's a good one. Yeah, Turner Morcano. Yep, both. Of
Green Miller is a sleeper one too for fight of the night.
I think if Jim Miller can't take him down, he's just gonna get pieced up real bad.
Yeah, but Bobby Green is also not he's not the best knockout artist. It'll turn into sort of a point fight, but a high pace point fight, a really high pace point fight, and that can win fight of the night.
Well, for fight of the night, I'm gonna go with Justin Gaethje and Max Holloway. I really do feel it's gonna be. I think a lot of people are out there talking about Max Holloway. He's not a good fight for him. Everything you're saying, I understand. Yeah, there's a lot of people that agree with you. I just think Max Holloway, yeah, he got the tar beaten out of him by Dustin Poirier, but he, got his pound of flesh, and that was an unbelievable fight on the card. I'll always remember as maybe the best 1-2 main event, co-main event with him versus Poirier and Israel versus Gaslam, which two unbelievable fights.
What was that, 236 or something?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that was amazing double hitter right there.
But yeah, I just feel it. I think he has some interesting stylistic things that should make it really interesting. The lack of power is a problem, but he's just a guy. He's just such an entertaining fight. I can't ever see him getting steamrolled. This could be the fight that it could definitely happen, but Justin Gaethje also leaves a bunch of openings, and this is a guy that can hit you with stuff you don't see coming at times. So I'm fascinated by that one. So then, final question. What's the biggest upset? What fight do you feel is a solid favorite that they're on shaky ground and it might not go their way?
I'll say if Cody Garbrandt is fighting at his best, which no guarantee, if Cody Garbrandt goes in there and doesn't get that thing where someone touches his chin and he just loses all sense and sensibility and just rage monster and throws his chin out there first, he can beat Figgy.
Hmm. Yeah.
If he stays fundamental, if he stays composed, he can beat Figueredo.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with this. There's two for me, and it's going back to as much as I think Alex Pereira should put a hurting on Jamal Hill. I thought he was going to lose many other fights before, and he's sneaky good. He's clever with his striking, and he's a big power puncher. And yeah, Alex Pereira's been in a lot of fights. He's not a young guy. Like this is kind of the point where things get a little dicey, and the reflexes can be a little slower. And with a guy like Jamal Hill, who's younger, big power, he's slick with his striking, his boxing, stuff like that. This is the guy that can catch it, and I wouldn't. That's a fight that I think Pereira should win and cleanly and finish him, but. Jamal's a live underdog. The other one is Sarukian. Sarukian just feels like that kind of guy that's on the rise, that's just extremely dangerous, that's a tough out. Oliveira's also kind of at a similar point. I don't think he's as old as Alex Pereira, but still a lot of fight miles on him. He's been knocked out. He's been rocked in a lot of his fights. Not to say that Armor Sarukian is a power puncher. It's not really his style, but he's developing his game where at least he's more of a striker, but he's still, he's becoming more of a complete fighter. And it just feels like one of those kind of moments where changing the guard, like this is the next big star, and we all expect him to just get pushed away, and then things don't go that way. But any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Any thoughts about 300?
Yeah, sure.
Well, I'll just share this. Maybe we'll dive deeper into this when we talk more 300 in the near future. But I'll share this simply because you shot down me doing an editorial on this. But I think that the people who have a problem with the main event of UFC 300, I get it, right? They hyped up UFC 300 to be like the greatest thing in the world, and there was even a level of disappointment, maybe is the wrong word, but there was a level of anticlimactic feel when the announcement was made with the backstage at UFC 298. This was like, oh, this is the one they're going with, because we were hearing other things. We hear that like I told you about some of the stuff I was hearing that what was going to be the main event, and that ended up not coming to fruition. I think this is just a manifestation of what the UFC is today. At the time of UFC 100 and at the time of UFC 200, you had this huge growth, this huge expansion, and this influx of new stars. It felt like you're going on uncharted territory. In particular, UFC 200, that was made. That fight was put together just before the Endeavor deal was finalized. So this was the final cherry on top to entice this new money bag to just fall into their lap. We don't have that money bag falling this time. There are TV deals being negotiated, but by the time that means anything, the new TV partner, if there is a new one, they won't give a damn. It'll be in the past. So there isn't this same looking toward the future sort of thing. The UFC is very much in a now phase. Let's make this money now. Let's cash out now. And this is what you get. You put these bodies together, you throw them in there, and you hope it sticks to the wall. So that is my UFC 300 take.
And that is the end of our latest edition of the Scrap Report. Of course, please like, share, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening to or watching this. And of course, I am Jason Burgos. He is the hater of all haters, Anthony Walker. Until next time, everybody. Bye-bye.